Morning, everybody. David R. Becker here with BeckerArt, and I'm just gonna do a little Sunday morning demo. Happy Valentine's Day! Not here yet, but the weekend. And so we're gonna do a little bit of a complicated scene. I love doing street scenes, and I actually could have been outside today, but I decided because it's actually not too bad outside. But I had this already planned for yesterday, and so I'm just gonna be doing it indoors. But usually on Sunday, I like to go out and do some plein air painting. But again, I just had this already drawn up for yesterday's class, but I'd never painted it. And so I'm just going to be doing it this morning. And so cheers, everybody. Here's my cup of coffee. Still haven't had my cup of coffee yet. And I always get done watching Sunday morning program, my favorite program on the air. And so I just watch that, and then afterwards I just come in here and paint in my studio. And I'm working on my studio, getting into lighting a little bit better. It's still not yet to where I want it. I got to clean up my studio first, and we'll see how we can get it really, really nice for you guys. All right, so we're going to do this in full color, and you can see over here on the right that I have, let's see. I'm going to get started with my background, do all my lights first. And with a scene like this where it's really complicated, there's a lot of drawing in it, you don't paint it like that. I don't do pieces. I still work the big areas. I still try to work like this building back here. I'll have the middle tone and lights that I'll first put in. And so I'm just doing all the lights first. And the sky, as you can see, it could be a blue sky, but usually it's so bright and the sun's coming through here. And I love the orange on these little awnings here. And so we're going to make it, a little bit of light shining right down the middle of the street. And the couple here walking down the middle. And it's for the Valentine's Day. So we're going to get going here. And I'm going to make it a warm background, cool foreground, so that the shadowing all up here will be in the cool side. And so I'm going to bring the warmth of the sun way back there. And that's kind of what happens in the winter months, is that you usually do the warmth in the background, and the snow-covered foregrounds, usually those are going to be cool. And so let's just go in here and do this building. And so I took a little bit of orange, and my palette is dirty from this. I used 3 colors on my Thursday nights, and so that's still in there. And so we're going to just use some of that, use it up. I'm going to use some pink, a little bit of opera. Just put it back here. Maybe I'll go around glass that's shiny. So basically this is a middle tone, and my lights, I'm putting in my light colors. And this right down here is going to be very orange, because the sun is right here behind there. And so I'm just going to put a little bit of yellowish orange there, even some little bit of yellow. I'm just going to kind of come in here and then just bring that right in there and just make these buildings, like I said, warm, because the sun is directly hitting them, and there are going to be shadows there later, but you put the shadows in afterwards. And the lights I'm kind of going around because they're glass and they're going to be reflective. And so these little lamps I just created, it's not in the photo, I just put them in there because I wanted to. I do that a lot with some of my photos. I just kind of make things up. When you do enough city scenes and scenes of whatever you're painting, you kind of tend to know what to put in there because you've done it before. And so I'm going to put a little grayer as it comes forward. And I use, to mix my gray, I usually use a lavender. It's kind of like with the orange and yellows, lavender and yellow make a gray, and so they're complements. So that's a good thing to use. And so I'm just going to go right around these lights. Here's a sign that'll be darker. And as you notice now, this is going to be more contrasty, so I drew it up kind of like what it is, but I always take liberties, and I always make things a little bit different than what I see them. Here I'm going to make these awnings nice and orange. I love the orange in there, and it's my second favorite color, orange anyway, so of course we're going to make those orange. And nice and bright orangey. I use brilliant orange together with yellow or permanent yellow orange. And so this will be the light parts of the, this is going to be dark later, but right now I'm just putting in my lights. I'll float a little bit of the brighter orange in here, like the rim lighting, rim lit a little bit. So this is permanent yellow orange. It's a little bit more yellow. And then right away, we'll put this in the background. So see, this is like, normally you would put grays in the background to push it back, but because the sun is right around the corner here, I'm gonna make the background warm. And you know, you can do that. It's not like, it happens. And so, but I'm doing a very light color of the worms. They're not really powerful, really blatant, bright colors. The hue is not like so vibrant that it's coming forward that much. And then we're going to have the darks of that show the foreground. And so just putting in my lights. Always the first step you do is when you do your watercolors, you do your lights. You do your light colors first, and then you get onto your middle tones, the large middle tones. Second step is large middle tones and darks. So let's just put this right in the back here. Go right over the people. If I wanted like to have rim lighting on things and stuff, I could put masking fluid on there first and stuff and come back later. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use white paint. And I'm just going to use white paint when I need that rim lighting. And so that'll be just fine. And so now we're going to put some of this shadowing. And so here we're going to, underneath the awnings usually, I kind of like to put warm colors too. That was a trick that my instructor, Irving Shapiro, always taught, that in the eaves of things, you put like a nice orange in there. Because it reflects down onto the street and back up into the eave of buildings and these awnings. And then, yeah, there's a lot of orange in there right now, but this is my lights, and so I want to bring that in. And as I come forward, I'm going to go into more of a lavender, violet, maybe blue. Put a little blue in there. You got to watch it, though. If you have a lot of yellow in your orange, then it's going to turn green. So just watch out for that. Again, these are my middle tones. I'm not going to my darks yet. Not my dark areas yet. Still working on getting the lights. These are still the lights. And you notice like there's a lot of drawing in here. And it took me a while to draw this. And I was actually drawing it while I was watching Sunday morning. And so as you're drawing and you put all this stuff in there, you really have to realize that you're not going to be painting it completely like that. You're not going to put every little detail in there. Not until the end. It all depends on how detailed you want to make it, but that's it, more towards the end. And let's see if anybody's actually watching here. So let me refresh this 1 second, because if you do have some questions, you can put them up there. And I usually can't see on Facebook if you have questions, but later on I always answer them after the thing's over. And I will also put this onto my YouTube channel for people to watch it later on. But ask questions if you like. We have a few people watching. That's nice. And so now we're going to go in and still do our middle tones and lights. I'm still going to put the lights into the windows here, and because there's going to be dark on top of that. That will then determine what those colors are later on. And so make this a little bit. A little blue in that purple. And this is my middle tone. It's not my darks yet. But the middle tone, you know, the large middle tones also give it the look of what you need the values to be, you know, and the colors to be. I need the colors to be cool up front here so that the background then is like your center of interest is right in here, and that's going to be warm. So now let's just get our little bit of using ultramarine with lavender, and I'll make that in the front here. I'll put that in, and again, this is not my darkest dark yet. These are, and actually I can start the shadow out a little bit warmer, and then put some of the gray into that. And put a little bit of violet in there. And I'm, again, going more middle tone. I don't need to make it super dark yet. I can save that. You know, I can save some of that for later. Or I can put some of that I want soft edge. I put that in there now. And so see how I'm just kind of dappling it a little bit, and then where the people are. I mean, even though this is cobblestone, cobblestone gets worn down to almost like glass-like surface. And in the picture, it doesn't look like it's called totally cobblestone, but I decided I'm going to put cobblestone in. So, and a lot of times cobblestone gets really shiny because of all the people walking over it and the trucks and cars driving over it. It tends to get very, very shiny. And so anytime it looks shiny or a wet surface, you can reflect downwards. And so I'll take my round brush. And get a little bit of the dark in there from, it's like a reflection and not a shadow. The shadow is across it. A shadow or a reflection goes straight down from that object. So it's a little bit different. Reflections and shadows. They're not the same thing. So that goes straight down. I'm doing the reflections, and then shadows. Or the whole thing is in shadow, basically. And then I will indicate more of the cobblestone later on. I'll put a little bit more into each individual piece of cobblestone that's on the street. And this is all lit up. This is the light coming across here, so I can put a little bit of shadow coming through there. This is all gonna be dark table right there, and this is all gonna be dark too. But let me just put some warm color that's lit up from the sun. All right, so that's my foreground pretty much. Let's get a little bit dark in here, just a little bit. Try to get that look. And this is all soft edge because it's still wet, and so you work your soft edges, work them right off, right from the beginning. And then we're just gonna put this down. All right, so now that's my big areas of lights and middle tones. Now I'm going to my second step, which is my middle tones and darks, large middle tones and darks. So what does that mean? It means that I'm going to go into this building now and grab a little bit of the shadowing on there. And I'm going to make it kind of warmish gray. And so I'm using the orange again and a little bit of lavender. That'll kind of gray it down. And so I'm just going to go in here, and it's still wet a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to go in here and just grab some of the information that needs to look like whatever the building is. You know, the windows here, and it's still wet right up there, but that's okay. We're going to keep it out of focus, and that's okay. Here, part of the structure of the building here too, it shows shadowing. And like if it is wet, what you do to make it so that you hold more of a line is you add more pigment. You just make your pigment in your brush go in and make sure that you have it really thick. So don't, just go into pure pigment. Tap it down to see if it's pure pigment, and then just put it right in there. It's a pure pigment. I don't need to put water in my brush because there's already water. It's still wet right up there. And it's actually in a good spot where I don't need to have a hard edge anyway, so. And so I'm going to go and just keep on going, working my way down, get the background to look like what it is. These windows, and here's the lamps. I'll go around those. I put the lamp in. That's just something I added. It's not there, but I felt it needed it, and so I put it in. So now here's some more windows, and again, depending on your style and how detailed you get, that's all up to you. You still have to follow the big lights and darks and still have a value pattern. When it comes to style, that's, fundamentals are fundamentals. You still have to do what I'm doing now, even if you're doing it really tight. You just do it more slow, and you're kind of doing individual things a little bit more detailed. But yeah, fundamentals are fundamentals. You gotta get the value of sketch and get that all done no matter what. I don't care how tight you are or how loose you are. The value pattern is the value pattern. I talked about that a lot in my newsletter this week. If you got my newsletter, we had some students do some paintings, and I showed how the value pattern could have been better, just a little bit better. And so you can look that up on my website. You can always find all the older newsletters. They're archived. So now I'm going to take a little bit of lavender and kind of dull this down a little bit. I need my darks now. I'm getting my middle tones and darks. And those are the light areas of middle tone and dark. It's not the light anymore. Now it's the middle tones. And it's the large areas, not the detailed darks yet. These are the big areas of middle tone and darks. Like this, there's going to be like a fire escape down here I'm going to put in there. It's really just a really weird one. I'm just going to make it up, make it more wrought iron, black and stuff. And so, again, I'm still not into my dark detail stage yet. I'm still doing the large areas of middle tones. So go right around these lamps. I could like mask out these lamps and stuff, but they're going to be dark and light. You know, they're going to have a lot of light into them. Now I'm going to get a little bit grayer as I come up here, a little bit darker to indicate the windows in this building. And you notice how I'm not very detailed in that. I'm going pretty loose with it because I'm not I'm more of an interpreter, an impressionist than I am a hyper-realist. I don't go in there and do it exactly like that is. But if you did, you'd still follow the values. You still do the big, large, you still do the same pattern that I'm doing. The same amount of light first, then mediums and darks, just slower and more detailed. And now I work from back to front, and so this whole background here, I'm going to work warm, but just put little details in there. And these people are going to be dark on top of the light, so they're silhouetted, a silhouette shape, so I can go around them. I could go through them with a lighter color, but I'm going to give them a little bit of a, I'm going to go around them to give them a edge, like a rim lighting on them. And so again, see I'm using warm colors. I'll go in there, get some orange in there. And I know it's a background, but that's okay. You can use warm colors in the background too. And just the values and the overlap will take care of the dimension of things. And I still don't have my, still not doing my darks yet, my dark details. That'll make it look good. I mean, people tend to always want the painting to look good all the way through. And that's not something that happens. It's usually you gotta, my instructor always said, you gotta go through the uglies. Your painting's gotta go through the uglies. And that means that you don't have details, and so you're working the big values, and so it's not gonna look great yet. I have to wait for that until I get my darks in there and identify shapes and stuff. Right now I'm identifying large areas of lights and darks. Getting those big lights and darks in there. See. Paula asks, good morning, David. In one of your paintings, you had clear, straight lettering on a FedEx truck and Starbucks sign painted negatively to appear in white. How do you get lettering that is so even in size and thickness? When it comes to lettering, like if I'm going to letter a sign or something, I just make sure that it's drawn. And then I'm really careful, you know. Though that the depends on where the lettering is at too. Like in that scene where that's my AWS piece that got accepted in AWS. That piece is large, and so the larger the image is, also it's easier to get a larger. It's like almost a full sheet, and so it's easier to paint around like the Starbucks logo, and it's also just gestured. It's not really super detailed, but the FedEx part is. There I went in and I did exactly like it was on the truck, and so you're just careful and just go through a small brush, and that's your small details. That's what you do at the end. You do your small details at the end and get all that stuff in there. But again, first do what I'm doing now. First do your large areas of lights and darks. You have to get that first because you need to have that value pattern. Value pattern is so important. That's why you do a value study. Watercolors especially, we do watercolors because we have to know what we're going to be doing all the way through the picture. We can't, like oil painters, they can go back on top of things. We want to get to be where it's at right away. We want to go in there later and make it better. We want to do it right from the get-go. We want to be able to put our lights in there and our darks and middle tones all in certain steps. And so we need to know exactly what things are going to be, what values are going to be. Because we want beautiful washes. We want beautiful large washes that we don't have to touch very often. The more you touch your picture with the brush, the worse your watercolor is going to get. Unless you're going very slowly and doing very little hyper-realist type of stuff. If you're doing big washes, you want those big washes to look very fluid, right? You want that big fluid look. And so now I think I'm at stage of dark details. Large darks first. So I'm gonna take my rectangular brush. I like using my flat brush for rectangular shapes, especially buildings, because everything in the street is usually like the windows. Everything's rectangular and hard edge shaped, and so that's like I like using a flat brush for my street scenes. So now I'm gonna go in there with some really dark colors, some purple, some blue, some black, and I'm just gonna make myself a really dark color first here. And I'm gonna take one spot to kind of start it out at, and so I'm gonna maybe just start it right here, because in this area, this whole underneath here is going to be a lot of darks in there. So there's a big dark right here, like a doorway, and so I'm just going to go in there. And I don't care what color I have in my brush at the moment. I just want it to be dark, and then I wet it with this dark, and then right away go back in and float other colors into that dark. I don't care if it was black or blue or whatever color that you're using, it doesn't matter. I will go back in and create floating pigment. So I'll put a little bit of orange in there. I will put blue in there. I'll put every color I want, and I'm going to make it nice and dark, and just bring that to make it look like a really beautiful wash. Beautiful wash with a lot of different colors. Though it started out with a very limited palette, it started out with just almost black. I went in with black and purple, permanent violet, and then I added other colors to it. And so see how I'm just letting all the colors float in there? And then I'll get the detail. And I need to go sideways here a little bit with my hand. And I look at the picture, and how much do I want it to look like the picture, and I drew it up a little bit differently, so I've got to kind of make up things. Like here, I put a couple chairs and tables in front here. So I'm bringing that all together as one kind of wash. And then it's a dark wash, and so again, I started with any color, and then float other colors into that wash. Once it's wet, you can float other colors into there. And I try to bring all these things together as like one object, one wash, because the bigger the wash, the more, again, the bigger the wash, the more you can make it look like watercolor, right? And so you can get this beautiful watercolor washes where you get granulation happening and your pigment is floating. And see, these chairs it doesn't matter, they're all together. I mean, all together as one unit of dark. Yes, there are shapes that I drew, and so I've got to get those shapes to look like what they are. But then, like, some of this stuff I'm just going to put together as one. See now how it looks like, it's a table of chairs. You don't have to get each individual part separate. You can make it all together as one dark area. And then there's going to be shadows coming off of that. All right, so then go down and just keep on going. And I'm kind of working from left to right. And I'm just kind of going to go in there. And now there's a sign right there. And do I want to put lettering on there? Absolutely not. I don't want my eye to go here, because lettering is something that you're going to see. And it's got to be in the center of interest. So I'm just going to go in here and put it. And I'm going to fake some lettering on this sign. But first I'm going to make it dark, overall dark, because it's away from the sign, though in the picture it shows it light, and I'm going to make it dark because I wanted to look away from the sun. And actually I made this a sign, and actually in the picture it's part of the building, and so I kind of switched that off a little bit. I made it my own thing. Here's going to be, it's going to be a sign, and then I'll go in there and put I'll put bright colors, and I'll make it look like you can. Later on, I can put darks in there to make it look like a sign, more like a sign. Get this in here a little bit darker. There's a nice dark that comes down here too. And see how darks create shapes. They create objects. They create things that then identify what is that you're painting. Before I was just coloring. I'm coloring, and I'm kind of getting the shapes, but it's more or less I'm working my values, getting the light values, getting the color, and now the darks create the shapes and the objects. Again, if you have questions or things, just write them up there. I will come back to them later, or if I see them now, I'll try to answer them. And so here we have I put a a little cart of some type, and I'm going to put the shadows going across that. And then I'm not sure what this is filled with. It looks like it's a garment district, this picture. So, but I changed it around a little bit. I'm just going to make it, like a street scene with a bunch of shops and stuff outside. And there we have like a little basket of something, a little cart and basket of something. And here's a sidewalk, and I make little cracks to break your mama's back. And we're gonna put a little dark in there. Let's put some color more in here. Here, this is a sign from the pole. There's gonna be a pole right down here. Now I wouldn't do that right now because this is all wet. So I'm gonna wait for that really dark pole to come in later. So across that, and there's a sign right there too. But I'll go behind it and just make this behind parts of that pole in first. Let's put that in there. And again, once you have it down with one color, don't be afraid of socking some other color into that. See, I'm putting other colors, letting it float in there. Always let other colors float in there. Don't just be good with one color. I like to have all these colors are mixing and mingling. Mix and mingle. So we're going to go through here, make that dark. And as you notice, it gets darker around the person. But as I go back, I'm going to get warmer. I make it darker, but I'm going to stick and get warmer with it, which is kind of like normally in a landscape, the background is grayer and cooler. But I just decided because the sun is back there to make that warmer. And it's kind of breaking the rules, but that's okay. It happens, and then that's the way you show dimension is then do other things besides the color is not going to determine your distance. It's going to be overlapping. It's going to be contrast. It's going to be other things besides color. And that happens a lot. I love the fact that to use color in a different way, making your foreground cool and your background warm. It's a good way of doing things. So let's see if we go back here and go more with the orange and just show people back here and the distance behind these people that are important. A couple of things are going on back here. Very small detail. It's smaller detail, but it's not very contrasty because I wanted my contrast to be in front. And so these people are getting very contrasty, and then we're going to get a nice color for the street. Now let's do this side. Let's get in there with the darks in this side, and that is going to be really dark. I want to make that fire escape really dark, so I'm going to start with black again, a little bit of purple, blue, a little bit of orange to dull it down, and I'm just going to make it like a wrought iron fire escape. And so I'm making a bunch of lines, and I'm not being very careful. I'm just going to go in there and because it's really not what it is, and so I'm kind of making it up. And I know that there's just like a ladder kind of steps and stuff, and so you kind of know what it is. I mean, I'm just kind of faking a fire escape in there. Again, if you've drawn enough buildings and scenes, like I have done a lot of Chicago scenes, to know what that kind of looks like. And now that it's all dark, you notice that I'm just using one color, but now it's wet. Remember what to do. Throw other colors in there. Even if it's small like this, it's still wet then. You can put other colors in there. You just dump a little bit of red and orange into those colors and you're fine. Now what I am going to do also is that this brush is getting a little bit too big, and so I'm going to take my let's take our rigger brush, and I want to get some really fine detailed railings and stuff, and so I can make it a little bit finer. So I'm going to go in here and get some finer looking. This brush has seen its last days. Look at that, the tip of this brush is really bad. Okay, I'm gonna have to splurge and get another rigger. This one is worn this one out, I think. That happens when you use a brush a real lot or don't take great good care of it. It tends to get not as pointy. So there we have the fire escape. Thanks, Gloria. Thanks for the compliment. You guys are doing a great job also for Thursday nights and stuff. You guys are doing great. So happy that you guys are learning. And so if anybody's new here, I do a Thursday night paint along, where you can paint what I'm painting, and maybe not at the same time that I'm painting it, but I keep it up there on YouTube, and there's always a lesson. We try to keep a bunch of lessons in there. So see how I made this a little bit darker, and then I'm just gonna kind of bring it back, and it's totally different from what the photo is. The photo kind of makes the building look like it's across this way, so I'm just gonna make it a little bit different from that, and I'll make the awning. I'm gonna work the awning a little bit more, and I put a little dark in there, put it a little bit warm underneath it, and then there's things that go backwards like this, and here's these awnings too that are little like bubble kind of awnings. And then I like to get it really dark for the doors, because you know that's like there's some really darks in there. And now I'm going to use my 1/4 inch brush, 1/4 inch flat, because again I'm using rectangular shapes, and so the best thing to use on a rectangular shape is a flat brush, I find. Maybe not for you, but for me it is. And I'm going through here, making stuff up here. I don't know what's there exactly. You know, I'm not going to look that detailed, not that close to it. Just going to make it dark. I'll use my flat, bigger brush for the bigger door. And then again, remember I put one color in there. It's only just one color. And I don't stop there. I then never stop there. I then go for other colors and drop them in there and let it float. And you can put light colors on top of dark colors. If you do that, you don't have to always put darker and darker. You can actually put light colors on top of dark, because it's floating. It's floating in the water, and it's separating the dark from the lights, and it's just kind of floating in there. So no problem with that. You just go in there and do it. Put lights on top of dark. But it has to be wet. It has to be like you're floating the pigment, not thick, so thick that it's just sticking there. Lines in there. Edge of the sidewalk. And here at the top of the awning. I can put stripes in there later for the awning and get it even darker yet. I can do that too later on. Put this really bright yellow there in the back, and then maybe, okay. All right, I think we're ready for even finer details. And so let me go in here and do these lamps, because now we're at our detail stage, detail dark. So that's all the big. I mean, I don't have much bigger parts to do, though my shadowing in here has not gotten dark enough. And that's one of the biggest problems that I find myself to have, and all my students, is that we don't do the right value from the get-go. It's hard because it's going to dry 20% lighter, and so this is 20% lighter. It got 20% lighter, and it was not dark enough in the beginning. So what I'm going to do is just wet that area and do it again. I can do that. Just take your clear water, wet the whole area again, evenly. Just wet it evenly, and then just make it a little bit darker. Like, don't disturb it so much that you're getting rid of that. I don't mind that. I'm just going to take a little bit darker colors now and get that on top of the... And I should have done that right from the get-go, but hey, like I said, sometimes you just don't get it. You don't... Because we, as artists, when we're working, we look at it and go, oh, that's perfect, you know, because it's what it looks like. But then all of a sudden, you look at it again later and like, oh man, that just dried way too light. Because you really have to make it look wrong to be right. You have to make it look 20% darker than what you want it. And so that's hard to do, because you don't want to make something look wrong, right? You don't want to go in there and go, oh, no, that's too dark. But it's going to get lighter. It's get 20% lighter when it dries. And so that is hard. That is the hardest thing for us artists, myself included, to do. So here I'm going to go in with a little bit darker color. And I'm going to just put these in again. Brush it over this way. And now it looks really dark, doesn't it? I mean, like, oh, I just ruined it. No, I didn't. You watch. It's going to get nice and leveled. Get nice and... Make it nice and dark. Bring it right into here. I love watching you on Sunday morning, so thanks. I love the way you mix paints to get different colors. No problem. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope everybody learns something. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm hoping that you guys get just as good as I do. And just keep on painting. All right, so there we have the shadow. Now the shadow looks like it's shadowed, right? I mean, you get it nice and dark. I'm gonna shift this around a little bit here. Just didn't get quite dark enough either. Like I said, the hardest thing to do is make things dark enough in the first wash. It's so hard to do because you're looking at it and you go, yeah, that's perfect, but it's not, because again, once it dries, it's whatever you get when it dries that makes it look like what it is. So now let's go in there, and I'm going to turn my painting sideways here for a second because I want to do these light poles. And so I turn it sideways because I can always do a line easier when I go in like I'm writing. I can't do up and down like this is good, and so I'm going to go in there with a nice dark color. So I'm starting with black, and I can put a little purple in that, maybe a little red. And then I'm just going to, hopefully, I could use my ruler. I have a ruler that I can do that with. I can put it on there. And it's one of those triangle rulers or the star rulers. And then I go like this, and then I just kind of run my finger. And so my finger, and I try to do a couple of little lines here, and I'm just going to roll it down and then just go straight. See? Just make a nice straight line. So easy peasy. So this one too, this is a little wet right here, but I found a spot here. I can just go up on top here, and I do a little fake with my finger. So my finger is just resting on there, and then I just kind of take it across. I don't use it as like to put it against the ruler. Like I don't put my brush against the ruler. I put my finger against it, so it's just a guide. It's guiding my finger, and then I just kind of go down. So you make a nice straight line, and this is good for sailboats when you're doing the mast and the lines in the sailboat. You know, that works great for that. And I go back, and now I got a nice straight line, right? It's not so curvy, and then I can use my rigger brush to make the little details of the sign. Now also, what I could do is, since that is like back here, I made it a little bit too dark, so I'm going to take a little bit of reddish orange, and I'm going to put it inside there. Get my finger and then just let it float inside that little bit I just did, because it's nice to have it little colors. I don't care how small an area is, you can float other colors into a wash. This is a little bit bigger, so I definitely want to do that here. I'm going to take some red, and I'm just going to put it right into the pole where I just did. I'm just going to let it pour it right in there. It's wet, and it'll stay right in that area too. And just add a little bit paint, red in there. See, a little bit of red just helps it out. A little bit of orange, because you can put a little shadow across that. The bottom of the poles are usually a little bit thicker, and they're kind of decorative, and depending on what kind of pole it's sitting on. And so I'm going to make this a little bit darker here, a little bit whiter on the bottom. And then I can also do little hits on it, like make it fancy. Make this little fancy decorative of the lights. I kind of took these lights from there's these kind of lights in Chicago. All around Chicago they have these kind of lights, and so I've done enough of them that I just kind of made it up. There's all kind of filigree type of metal, and the tops are a little round ball on there, and of course, like anything, I always put any color down, and then I come back and I float some other color in there. Don't forget that. I really watch that, because you don't want to just take one color and make things one color. These colors are all around, so there's going to be a lot of orange in this, because I'm pretty much working orange and kind of bluish and yellow and purple. And so I stick with those colors, and then supply them all around. So you ask, what kind of color you're using. All of them, really. When you start, whatever you used in the beginning, you use at the end, and you put it everywhere. And I float a lot of that color into different parts of the painting. Like here now, I just did that in one color, and now I'll go in there and I'll take a little bit of orange, and now the light's coming this way, right? So it hits this side, and so I'm just going to put a little orange on there, let it float. And I should have done the light part of the light first, because I want to put a little bit of lavender in the actual light itself. I'll take my 1/4" brush, and I'm just going to kind of go in here and make that more lavender, like glass, like it's a gray. And on the left side, it's going to be darker, right? And on the right side, I'm going to keep it light. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to put any orange in there too. So now that it's wet, I'm going to put a little orange in there too. So that'll, and a little bit of everything. You don't want to just make it one color. Nothing is really one color unless it's like maybe the center of interest, and like maybe her shirt will be all red, bright red, like it is in the photo, just to kind of get your eye to look right there. Again, my round. Let me take my round and finish the rest of these. This detail takes a little bit longer. When you're doing details, it takes a little bit longer to do them. So let's this time do the lights first, and so I'm going to do the lights first. The light part of the. You always do everything you do. You always do lights first. Light comes before the darks. So there's the lights. Now the dark details. Dark details. I'm definitely going to have to get a new rigger brush. This one is pretty. Look at, there's a little clump on the top. A little clump on the top of there, so it's not. See, there's a little hair sticking out. So that's not good for a rigger brush. I have to get myself a new rigger brush. I have to buy it for myself. And so we're going to go in here. Make this nice and detailed. Oh, and a lot of times they also have plants hanging off of this, but that's a little bit too much. I don't want to get that crazy. There's so much happening already. I don't need plants on these light poles. And I think there was one light pole in this that didn't show anything. I just decided it would be nice to have them in here. It's not like they needed to be in there totally, but I just felt it gave it a little bit of excitement to it. Something else and different. And you know, you're the artist. You decide on what you want in your picture. I always say, you know, it's like I'm not a copyist. I don't copy exactly what's in the picture a lot of times. I kind of make it up as I go along and make it your own. Make it whatever you want. Now here's the lettering, and this is just faking. I don't want you to look over here that much, and so I faked a little bit of lettering in there. And same thing back here. You can do like fake little things that are happening. You don't know, you know, lettering and all kinds of stuff. I'm just making it look contrasty with a back and forth, up and down brush strokes, because I'm not going to make it so detailed that you can see exactly what it is. It's just darks and lights. Because that's what it looks like when you're looking at it anyways. And from a distance, you can't see every little detail. And you don't want to see every detail. Then it gets too clean. I want to have a little bit of lost edges. I'm putting the black ironwork in here. Same thing here. Oh, I forgot the sign in here, didn't I? We're going to keep it out. We don't need a sign. Okay, nice and dark. So now my center of interest, my details. And I'm also going to do some of the cobblestone down here. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But before we do that, I just noticed that, remember that was not, it was kind of out of focus. And so now that it's dry, I can go in there and make it just a little bit darker and a little bit more in focus. I'm not going to make it contrasty. I'm just going to make it hard-edged with low contrast, and then it'll make it look more realistic and like what it is. All right, so got that in there. And look at how the sun looks really bright. Doesn't it look great? Look, the sun is really shining in here real nicely. I will put a little lines going across. I always like to do that. A lot of European cities, they have like little wires going back and forth. So, oh, that's too wide. That was way. Boy, I gotta get a new. I've got to get a new rigger because that's a really wide line. That was a little bit too wide a line. But this rigger is. Boy, I gotta get a new one. Let's see if I have another rigger laying around here somewhere. That one is making too big a line. Oh well, I'll have to do that later. Yeah, I want to do a couple lines going across, like wires, and that's always fun to do in a scene like this. But that my rigger has had its days. All right, so now let's go in here and get the couple for Valentine's Day. They're walking on the street. They just ate dinner. So we're gonna go in here, and she's got like a nice red or pink on for Valentine's Day. And so she's got a nice red coat on. And then give him dark legs here. Same thing with him. I'm just gonna go in there and make the darks, and I'm not doing it so tight. It's tight, but just enough. And I have it drawn, so I can just go right over it with the drawing. I'm just gonna make him silhouetted against the shape, and so I can do a little bit of rim lighting, and I'm gonna do that with. I'll try a little bit of what I did with the background, and then the rest I'll do with white paint. Here, put his head in there. And I'm going to give her red hair too, because I always do give all my ladies red hair. And so, there we go. And then there's a person right here. Put that in there. Another couple walking down here. Now that's just one color, right? Remember to always give your other colors, again, float other colors in there. I don't care what he's wearing, it can reflect other colors within the area. And when you're gesturing people, always make their heads a lot smaller than you think. No balloon heads on people. Students always make the heads way too round. Way too round and way too big. Like these back here. Matter of fact, made it a lot smaller than you think. Alright, so there's the people. I'll make this a little bit darker up here. A little more contrast right here, so it looks like it's going back. A little more detail. And last but not least, we'll do cobblestone. But is this dry enough? Yeah, it's almost dry. Let me just make this a little bit darker and some of this underneath here. This person can be a little bit darker. Shadows and reflections. Shadows go like this, reflections go straight down. So we're going to throw a little shadow in here. And now cobblestone, I do the lines, and I do the grout lines, and I do the actual rock, or the actual brick on the cobblestone. So, but first I usually do the lines first. I just make dark lines. And I don't do all of them. I just go through, and hopefully this is dry, because you definitely want it dry. I'm just going to do the grout lines on some of them. And as it goes back, it gets smaller. And same thing in the light area, because even in the light area, you're going to see the grout lines, the lines in between the bricks. You see it's still wet, and so I'm getting it. Oh well. That's okay, because it'll look more. So if you get thicker with the paint, then don't have much water in your brush because it's already damp down there. So let me just make it thicker paints, and then it won't bleed as much. So I'm gonna, and I actually drew in a lot of the lines so that I can just copy them. I don't. I can just do it with a pencil, and you notice it kind of goes away when you put the big wash over it, and you just bring it back. Little lines. And I also go in perspective. You need to go with the perspective. And when you draw it, that's what I did. I make sure that my perspective is right with the bricks. So see how I'm just doing the lines, the grout lines right now? But I will go back in with my rectangular brush, my flat brush, and I will actually color in some of these bricks to make them darker and then show the edges on them. And you notice how I don't do anything back here. I leave that alone because that's so far away you really cannot see. You can do a couple little things like very small. You just wisp across it a little bit here and there. Like there's a little pothole or whatever. Here I can make a little grate into the side of the street. You can make a little grate where the water runs down. Edge of the sidewalk. Hold on. I know this is, it's hard to watch when you're doing detail because it's just time consuming. Because it's small, you got to go in there and just be a little bit more careful. Don't rush your details. I mean, it's important because it's got to look like something now. Can you use an archival black pen to resemble lines in the rigger? Doesn't come out right. Yeah, definitely. You can use pencil. You can actually do it with a pencil, color pencil. You could use inks. That's all. It's up to you. And a lot of times that'll be your style. Maybe there's something that you do that nobody else does. And so yes, definitely use whatever you want to make your painting look the way you want. The best of everything. Just make it look good. And if it makes it to do it with a brush or a pen, whatever. You do whatever you have to do to make it look good. At least that's what I think. I think you should just, if you want to use gouache on top of this, and you want to use ink on top of it, do whatever it takes to make the painting look good. There's no law that says you can't, and so it's like you just do what you have to do to make things look good. Put a little line in here. And actually, that's how you make different techniques and stuff, and that's how come you'll see so many different kinds of paintings and such. And so it's good to try other things and try. I'm gonna have one of the ladies that substitute for my classes when I'm gone, and she just cuts up old paintings and makes flower paintings out of cut up watercolors. And so I'm gonna have her teach that class, and I want to be part of the class because I want to do the same thing. I want to just cut up old paintings that I have, a lot of them, and I just want to see what you can do to make paintings out of those cut up paintings. Okay, guys, I think I'm getting very close. Oh, I was going to do the rectangular shape now. Let me refresh this. I want to see any more questions. Okay, and so let me just do some. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take like a darker purple, and I'm going to go across some of these bricks, some of these pavers. And see, I'm just taking like this dark color, and I'm going to go over, like I'm actually coloring each individual brick, leaving the top part a little bit light. And so it looks like it's rounded, and the left side, or the top side, is hitting the light. And I don't do it on all of them, but just some of them I go in there and I actually draw the color of the brick and make it darker. That's what it really happens. It's like they're not all the same. And these streets are so old, a lot of times they happen to be very textury, very different brick colors, and light coming through here. A couple over on this side, make them a little bit darker. Okay, guys, I think I'm done. With this today's Sunday morning demonstration. I think we're getting close. Let's put a little dark sign on this post right here. All right. Let's make her a little bit darker to contrast her up a little bit. Same thing with his leg. His leg got a little bit wide here, so I'm just going to scrub out a little bit. And actually, it got a little bit, because it was wet, so I'm going to scrub out a little bit here and make this a little bit lighter. There we go. I think that's it, guys. I think we're good for today. Okay, that's good. Let's take the tape off and call it a day. So hopefully everybody's going to watch the Super Bowl this afternoon or this evening. And I was going to try to do something in that aspect, but I thought, Valentine's Day instead. Um, Actually, I haven't done actually a sport painting, so maybe I should do that. I mean, that's gonna be something I think about. So I remember a couple of my friends had done scenes like baseball scenes and stuff that were really cool. All right, one more thing. Since that is a sign, and you were talking about the sign before, so what I can do is I'm just gonna make this like a little bit more. Take a little white and just kind of make a circle and a line through it, just to make it look like there is some kind of sign of something. All right, there you go, guys. Hope everybody has a great Sunday. And get out your paints and practice. And I will see you on Thursday. All right, see you later. Bye-bye.